Hi, welcome, and welcome back to Seen and Heard Live. I am not going to say what week this is. I think we've gotten to the period of time where it's okay to just say, here we are again. Grateful for Wednesday, grateful for all of you joining us here at Hartford Stage for a bit of virtual connection. Again, a reminder, we're not trying to replace the experience of live theater. Just wanting to reach out to you and make sure you know how much we're thinking about you and how much this theater counts on you and misses you as well. Uh, Today's especially delightful to me because we're celebrating our volunteer ushers. So I was thinking about what, the volunteer usher is the mainstay of our theater. You're going to hear stories from them as well as from actors who started out as ushers. I refer to them all in my heart as genuine amateurs, as we all are in a way, because we ama and terra, right? We do what we do out of love. So an enormous thanks to our ushers. Before we get to all those great stories, Cynthia, over to you, my co-CEO and fabulous managing director.
Thank you, Amelia. I'm so happy to be here again. I'm going to start the show like I do on many weeks with my comments about the fact that our subscriptions are currently for sale. We would love for you, if you're already a subscriber who's invested in us, thank you, thank you. Talk to your friends, have them renew their subscription, or if you're considering becoming a subscriber, that investment now could really mean a lot to us. And that's not just true for Hartford Stage. For any performing arts organization or other organization that you are a fan of, that advance investment is what makes things possible for us. So please consider subscribing to Hartford Stage and to other arts and culture organizations that you adore. You can subscribe on our website, hartfordstage.org. And find lots of other information there as well as past recordings of Seen and Heard Live if you've missed any shows and want to go back. I also want to give a special thank you. You know, our gala was scheduled for April 18th, and we were not able to do that. But I know that certain people had virtual dinner parties that night, and we, for the first time, had our online auction. We usually do a silent auction and a live auction at our gala, but we did everything online thanks to Jennifer Levine, our wonderful staff member, and the great gala committee that she worked with. So that was a real success for us. The bidding there, and a lot of people bought some Hartford Stage pins at that event. So thank you to everyone who contributed. Some people just made a contribution through the online auction site, and some people did bid, and they came off with some wonderful items. We are also going really strong on our matching challenge. If you go to hartfordstage.org, we have a $100,000 match put together by a handful of very generous Hartford Stage fans who wanted to encourage you to give right now. They will match up to $100,000 dollar for dollar. And we are at $80,000 just today. So that any dollar you give now will be turned into $2. So please go to hartfordstage.org. Keep an eye on that thermometer as we move forward. We love and appreciate those matches of any size to our online matching challenge. And then finally, I just want to give my thanks as we go into a show about ushers, my thanks to all the incredible people that I have met. When I was very new here, I tried to go around and meet as many of our ushers in the theater, and I can tell you that ushers are actually our Uber fans. They love theater, they love this place, and they care deeply for our audience and our audience's experience at the theater. So thanks to them. And again, there are ushers all over this country ushering for regional theaters. I certainly did the same when I was younger and ushered, and was a way for me to see shows I probably never would have. And so I'm really grateful for that experience myself. And I'm especially grateful to all our 100% volunteer usher workforce here at Hartford Stage. So Amelia, back over to you.
Thank you. And it's that moment to introduce Scott Bartleson, extraordinaire Zoom master, given this new moment in our history. We do mean today to really be a conversation, so Scott will say that, but I just want to reiterate, join us if you have questions. And Scott, over to you.
Thanks, Melia. This is just my weekly update for those of you who have been with us before, that we do utilize the chat feature and the Q&A feature throughout the program. So if you have a question or a story or just something that you'd like to share, we will be monitoring those questions and those chats throughout the program, and we will bring them to the forefront as time permits. So please be interactive with us. We want to hear from you, but we're so glad you're here tonight. We have over 150 people watching so far, and usually throughout these programs, it builds and builds. So thanks again, and we look forward to a great conversation about stories of ushering.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we go into the stories of our current ushers and also of folks who've started out by ushering or got a dose of the theater they love by ushering, we're going to start with a scene very spontaneously because I just sent a couple of pages to two wonderful actors. Shona, are you there? Shona Tucker and Michaela Burnett. Are you both going to join me? I hope so. There's Ms. Tucker. Hello there. I will tell everyone a bit about actors. We're going to read a scene, an excerpt from a scene, just a page and a half, which I just sent these guys. Hi, Michaela, Shona, have you guys ever met? Let me introduce you. So Shona, that's Michaela, Shona. It's sort of perfect that McCaleb's here tonight because tonight would have been the invited dress for our wilderness, which McCaleb would have been in, and I hope will still be in. So, hello. Shona, I will say, passed on our wilderness, even though I asked her to do it because she had other engagements at this time. So who knows, Shona, maybe we'll all be together, you know, in the future. So I introduced to each other. You can read their credits in the chat. They're both extraordinary actors. They're going to read a very brief scene from Moss Hart's Light Up the Sky. This is a play that Moss Hart wrote in the 40s as a real celebration of theater. The scene they're reading is early in the play. McCaleb's playing a young playwright who's getting his big Broadway break, but they're actually in Boston for a tryout. And Shona is playing one of the producers, talking to him through on opening night. They're in a suite at what would have been the Four Seasons, I think is now the Taj, unless that's changed too. I haven't kept up. But they're in a suite in Boston for the out-of-town tryout of a brand new play that McCaleb's character, Peter, has written and is thrilled to see, about to have its first public performance. So I'll leave it to the two of you, and glad to introduce you and introduce you to us. See you soon.
The play is opening tonight. You're sure of it?
What? Oh, yes, of course. Why?
As an old practitioner myself, you seem to me extraordinarily calm.
Oh, no. I've got an upset stomach and I've been sick as a dog for 2 days.
I thought I hadn't seen you around. What are you doing for it?
Acting surprised, mostly. When I was driving a truck, my stomach was fine. You figure it out. I used to drive the night run between Omaha and Chicago and eating every 2-bit hash joint in the route, and my stomach was fine. Now I'm glad if Farina stays down.
Good. Always glad to welcome a new member of the Dramatists Guild. But that's an interesting leap, Mr. Sloan. From truck to the typewriter? How did you manage it?
I don't know. Only way I could afford to write. It's a 2-day drive to Chicago, and then you get 2 days off. I slept one whole day, and then I had all the next day free to work.
That's certainly getting into our union the hard way.
Well, it's not as tough as it sounds. I wound up soda jerking and dishwashing before I finished the damn play. Trucking was easy.
Well, I shall certainly avoid all those Sunday stories about you after the play opens, Mr. Sloan. You're much too colorful a figure. But I'm more eager now than ever to see that play tonight.
Thanks. As far as I'm concerned, it's all velvet right now. I never expected to see this play in front of an audience, anyway. Not in a million years.
Why not?
I wrote it to get a lot of things off my chest, kind of a personal crusade. I never thought anyone would do it. I didn't give a damn. I want it on paper. Big kick for me, no matter what happens tonight, is the humanity of these people.
What people?
All of them. Miss Livingston, Sidney Black, Fitzgerald, all of them. I've been banging around since I was a kid at 12, and it's nice, once in a while, to meet up with a bunch of people doing something with their hearts instead of their heads or their pocketbooks. It's a damn nice thing to see.
Indeed. Though I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean.
I mean, here they are, all of them, working like horses, pouring out money, staking their reputations, pushing aside all thoughts of personal gain and self-interest. Why? For what? They like this play of mine. But that's not the whole answer. Irene's playing an old woman of 70 and doesn't sign for the first whole act. Fitzgerald postponed his wife's play and paid off the cast to get this on right away. Sidney Black plunked down $300,000. That's more than just liking or believing in a play for my money, Mr. Turner. It's deeper than that. These people are good in heart. They have the wonderful courage of dreamers and fools. And there's not too much of that around.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a little taste. $300,000 to mount, a full show out of town. So that gives us a little sense of the period, I guess. And I did misspeak because Shona, you and I didn't get to talk before. You guys were brilliant, but Owen is actually the older playwright, not one of the producers. So, but so we could do it again with that adjustment.
I think our instantaneous connection was fine.
I think you guys were brilliant. Thank you so much. So I'm going to invite now a couple of other actors to join us before we start on our volunteer ushers who we adore, and because we want to hear your stories of ushering as well. So David Beish, I think you're on. So we'll invite David up. Well, there's his headshot at the very least. We'll soon see him in the flesh. And look, you look like your headshot. Well done, sir.
Oh, good.
The first rule, right?
That's right.
And Jennifer Van Dyke, I think you're there as well. We have Shona and Jennifer. I don't know how many of you actually know each other.
I think Jennifer was doing a show at the same time I was, the same play, but she was doing it in New York and I was doing it at Seattle Rep, An American Daughter. I think it was
wow.
Doing at the same time. Isn't that correct?
No.
Oh, well, it was a nice thought.
It's so not me. I never did that play.
You didn't? Play? All right. Well, we're moving on, ladies. This is a nice thought. I won't even talk about all the ways I'm connected to all of you because that'll take up the whole hour, and I'm not that interesting. Adrian Kristansky, are you there, my darling friend? Wonderful actor and teacher. And we'll sort of start with Adrian and Shona. So, all right. So do you guys know each other?
We do know each other.
Okay. All right. We're not going to test that right now. We don't have time. We're just going to all send love across these Hollywood squares that we're all so used to. And Gordon Clapp, I think you're there as well. So we're going to start with this amazing group. Gordon, I thought I saw you come on. Gordon has one of the most familiar ponem. If you'll, forgive me going to my Yiddish again. That just means face. Don't look worried, anybody. But here comes Gordon. I want to start. Shona, can we start with your ushering story?
Sure.
We're going to have you all. Hey, there's Gordon Clapp. Welcome. Gordon, meet David, meet Adrian, meet Jennifer, meet Michaela, meet Shona. Everybody.
Yes. My ushering story, I told Millie I had two. That one's the really short, and I'm sure it's similar to many people's. Coming out of grad school at NYU, I ushered, at all the theaters I could possibly usher at because I couldn't afford to go to see the plays. So I, off-Broadway houses would let you usher, most of them. But the Broadway houses, they had unions, so we couldn't quite do that. But it was great to see all this theater. And then fast forward, when I was doing just last year, doing To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway, I couldn't see anything that was happening. But one show had Monday night shows, and I really wanted to see what the Constitution means to me, but it was sold out. So I happened to, while seeing, I didn't tell you this part, while seeing Strange Loop one night with my son, the people who sat next to me, one guy was an usher. He ushered for the show. He sat next to me and he saw my son's t-shirt. He said, "Do you go to that high school?" And he said, "Yeah, I went to that high school." And because of that, he was the head usher at what the Constitution means to me. And he helped us get tickets by ushering for what the Constitution means to me. So on my night off, my son and I, because I really wanted him to understand what the Constitution was. He was 14 at the time. We went to see the play, and and we got great seats, because after we ushered, they brought us down to some empty seats in like the 5th row from the front. It was fantastic.
I just love the notion that you're on Broadway performing and ushering at another theater one night to the next. So just
absolutely, it was fabulous.
Totally love that. Oh, look, David and Michaela both brought their dogs on. So now my dog is going to feel very neglected, but she's not getting screen time.
It wasn't a choice on this end. I think she decided she was coming, and that's what happened.
Yeah. No, we liked the background. It sort of worked for the scene. We'll keep that. David, you actually have a Hartford stage story. So we have a picture of the production that David is going to refer to. Yeah. So why don't you start the story and then we'll show the photo. But we couldn't find one of you, so I apologize.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, I don't need to see me. There's if it's I don't know what picture you have, but I was going to tell a story from Romeo and Juliet.
That's what we have.
I ushered when I was in college. I had got a chance to spend a summer at the Yale Summer Cabaret, where I got a chance to do everything, and you'd go from being the assistant technical director and building the sets to being an actor to then ushering to working with the lighting designer, and everybody wanted to be an usher. That was like the coveted job. And then my first season at the White River Theater Festival, I was also able to usher, and that was sort of a rite of passage. So I have a huge appreciation for ushers and how important the job is and how hard it is. And I learned once it's not only important, it can be life-saving. So during Romeo and Juliet, Bill Camp and other members of the cast were carrying live torches. Yeah, there's Callista Flockhart as Juliet. That's my friend Robert Petkoff. That's right. It was a great Bob Stout.
What year is this? Remind me.
19.
Right, 19. It was that 19 year. Fine, never mind. Moving on.
This gray hair coming in over here that year. And
we don't talk age with actors. I should know better.
Right. That's right.
Age doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're all in quarantine. We don't know what day it is, so why bother talking about what year?
I've lost years myself. Just years younger.
Very
now.
good.
Yeah.
You look great for 31, by the way. I'm just saying.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mark Lamos had given us all torches, and
like real torches,
live torches,
live torches.
Wax paper wrapped around wrapped around the top of a wooden post, like dipped in napalm or something. I mean, it really was spectacular, and it was a wonderful effect, fantastic. It also was a bit tricky because there were those big VOMs in the theater, and we were in the round basically, and Bill tripped, and I was standing next to him, and the torch went past me over my shoulder, and I reached and couldn't get it. And sure enough, before it landed in the audience, on an audience member, the usher, quick thinking usher standing there, put a hand right out.
Okay.
grabbed it. So I mean, literally the most important job in the theater. I may very well owe my life to that usher.
So thank you to our ushers. I wonder, it would be really fabulous and not contrived because I didn't do this, but it would be great if that usher were on the call or someone knows who that usher is.
Oh, I can't remember their name. I wish I did. Yeah.
No, that would be so cool. There is a story at Hartford Stage about an usher, and we'll see if someone else knows this as well. The person who related the story could not join us, but of a fight call gone wrong and an actor being injured during the fight call. So a fight call, folks, is when they rehearse the fight before the production so as to not to injure anybody. It's done right at half hour or right before half hour before the show. And ushers were already in the theater, and an actor stabbed another actor, and luckily the usher was an EMT. So we really, and bandaged the actor, and the actor was taken to the emergency room. But I digress. So, Adrienne, you have stories from Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I was an apprentice at Williamstown, which is when I first saw Jennifer act, actually.
Ah.
And somebody knew I was from Chicago and introduced me to Laurie Metcalf, and I was like terrified and blurted out sort of like, how do I work at the Steppenwolf? And she just said, like, call us up and like, come on over, like clean the bathrooms, do whatever. And so what you would do is all the actors wanted to usher there because you saw like Gary Sinise and Laurie Metcalf and John Malkovich and these amazing people do plays. So you had your like temp job and you had to schedule your break at the exact time that they would take the call for the usher list.
Before the internet, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's phone calls.
Phone calls. And, you know, it would fill up in like 7 minutes. But, you know, if you were lucky enough, you got to go. And I saw, you know, what I got to see, and it was in the tiny theater on Halsted Street. So you were right there. And it felt like school. I mean, it felt like the best training I could have ever had is to watch those people.
You mentioned a detail to me about seeing Laurie Metcalf without makeup on stage, and how important that was.
Yeah, it was important to me because she looked like a person on stage. She just looked like a regular person, and I remember distinctly seeing her. I can't remember the play, but she walked on stage, and I thought, oh, I could be an actress too. I looked at her and I thought, she looks like a person. And I look like a person. Look at her. She's just a regular person. And it was extraordinary to see that kind of theater and not the like 2 inches of makeup and false eyelash kind of theater. It was extraordinary. Yeah.
Jennifer, you started ushering young as well.
I did. And this goes back to how Amelia and I know each other.
Aha.
Here we go.
Here we go.
We went to Brown together in Providence, Rhode Island. And I think everyone who was in the theater program.
Jennifer is much younger than I am. Much, much younger. So.
Anyway, we're not talking about age. This was
there is no age. There is no age. And I directed Shona when she was a grad student at NYU. So I've gone back with that. God. Yeah. All right. So go ahead, Jen, sorry.
So my freshman year, I took an acting class with a wonderful professor, James Barnhill, who is, I think he's about 99 and still with us and an influence for generations of Brown students. And when I took his class, he very early on pulled me aside and said, look, it's clear you're gonna do this, which was an amazing thing to be told when you're 18 and hoping that you're going to be an actress when you grow up. And he said, but you need to see everything. And there's a wonderful theater down the street called Trinity Rep, and you should go usher there. Now, Trinity, those of us who, we know what Trinity is, it's still around. It's a theater that's been around for decades. When I was at Brown, there was now there's a Trinity Brown consortium. They work together. There's a training program. None of that existed. Trinity was a theater downtown. Brown was the university up the hill, literally. And so I would walk down the hill, and I signed up to usher, and I would see. I remember the first show I saw there was The Tempest, directed by Adrian Hall, which blew my mind. And I saw these actors who then became, well, that's the punchline. But basically, I saw these incredible actors, and it never dawned on me that I would be on that stage ever, because they were a regional company. They were a resident. I mean, they were together forever. These actors had been working together for decades. It never dawned on me they would bring in anyone new. Well, cut to graduating from Brown, and I sidebar had Richard Jenkins was then taking over as artistic director. He came to see. I invited him boldly, whatever, to come see something I was doing at Brown, a role I was completely unsuited for, and Harold Pinter, which only now I'm appropriate age for. But anyway, he came to see it. He then asked me to audition for The Crucible, and I literally stepped out of Brown and stepped on the stage of Trinity, and that was my first professional job. And in the meantime, these people, these actors, all the Richards, Richard Jenkins, Richard Cavanaugh, Richard Nealand, Bill Domkeller, Barbara Orson. I mean, I can go on and on. They're this incredible company that I had watched as an usher, never even imagining myself up there, but just in awe. Talk about, it being a school. It was my school down the hill from the school. And it was an unbelievable education. And then it was sort of beyond surreal to then actually be part of the company and start my career on that stage.
It's amazing. It also just speaks to how much we learn so much by being in a theater, whatever our aspirations are. So, I mean, our volunteer ushers, I know they'll share some of the stories in a few minutes of just how much they've gotten just from the experience of being with actors, with an audience. Gordon, welcome. So in one of the 6 degrees of separation moments, Gordon Clapp right now was supposed to be in To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway. So Shona meet Gordon, Gordon meet Shona, as the world turns. Forgive the phrase. But Gordon, you have an ushering story as well.
Well, I didn't realize what a racket it was. If I'd known all of this, I would have wormed my way into a bunch of sold out performances. I think I was drafted into ushering one time in college at an endless production of Mother Courage, and I said I'll do it if I can leave at intermission, and they said sure, but I wasn't very good at it, so I was never asked to return. But I've gotten to know a lot of the ushers. I live in Vermont at the moment, and our local regional theater is Northern Stage down in White River Junction, and so I've gotten to know a lot of the ushers there, and sometimes occasionally I'll go to a performance, and the usher will at one performance was my accountant. I didn't even realize that that's what she did with her nights. But and then my favorite haunt in Norwich is the Norwich Inn pub, and Gretchen, who's at the front desk, was ushering one. I didn't realize she was an usher, and it was early in my Norwich life. I came out after a performance of Christmas Carol, and she was in the lobby, and she said, "I'm taking you for a drink." I said, okay, let's not go to the pub though. I'm tired of that. I'm going to take you to Elixir. Okay. So and we've had, there are a bunch of real characters down there ushering. Well, one of the volunteers, I'm not sure she's an usher, but Susan participated in something like this for Northern Stage. It's called Play Date, where they explore a play every Friday. And Susan decided after the first one that she wasn't sure she was coming back, because it was we explored the seagull, and she decided that she does not like plays where people just sit and talk to each other.
Oh. So there's room for all perspectives, right? Thank you. Some of you may have noticed a new addition. We've invited David Stratharan, to join us as well. So David Strathairn and I met at Hartford Stage. So David was an extraordinary Krogstad in Doll's House. So we come back to Doll's House. And it turns out, David, I believe you know Gordon. Gordon, I believe you know David.
Yes, I believe you. I saw you in at Hartford Stage in with Peter Strauss in what was the name of that play?
You're muted, David. You have to.
Einstein and the
Polar Bear.
Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed.
So
we spent many summers in North Conway. Do you remember any Usher stories? I do want to pay tribute to Paula Young, who was one of our chief volunteers. Just last week, her son Tim, who was as a 12-year-old, was in a production of Our Town with us, and told me of an adventure he had when David forgot his line. And he had to bail David out, actually.
So being saved by an usher. Just one quick more addition to this group. Gordon, David, I believe you guys know Michael Preston. So Michael, you're on as well. So there we go. We've got now these three guys go way back. So that's why we're sort of creating a little spontaneous online reunion. So it's a little parallel to the Usher conversation, so forgive me, it's just the serendipity of this moment of learning very last minute that all three of you were connected as I was reaching out to each of you individually. So just a quick, David, where you guys all go back to school?
Yeah.
Summer theater, New Hampshire?
Well, Gordon and I back to school, and then, the summer theater up there in North Conway, New Hampshire.
Amazing. So just we'll all catch up in conversation in a moment. Michaela, we need to bring your stories on. Just give me 1 sec. I want to first bring on someone near and dear to all our ushers and near and dear to our staff. Margie Glick, are you there? Our dearest Margie, our house manager, who oversees all our ushers and has those of you who've performed at Hartford Stage since she's been there. Will know her and she'll know you. I like that it's Margie and Gus Glick. So there's Gus. Hi, Gus. You're muted. There you go. Unmute.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Margie.
I'm so happy to see all your faces.
So as we join these stories with some of our ushers, and now we can start more of a conversation through this. But we'll start bringing in some of our contemporary usher stories as well. Michaela, you had a sort of whole life of growing up backstage.
Yeah, I was trying to think. My mom was a casting director with a lot of people that I'm sure a lot of people here would know. My mom was named Whitney Burnett. She's gone now. She was with Joy Todd and Alan Novak and a lot of other people. She was an incredible casting director. I think I was on sets as a soap opera sets as like 2 or 3. I saw Jelko Ivanek audition for my mother at like 5. But I do remember, I was trying to think of a good one just because I was backstage in lots of places. My mother she was working on lots of different stuff. It wasn't a super lucrative career at that point as a casting director. And, but my mother became a development director later on, and she was at Intar, which we all know, the theater in New York, and which is a wonderful theater. And there was a Irene Fornés play there, an operetta. And I was in college at Brown. And trying to desperately get my way in, even though I knew nobody except for my mother and the people she knew, and that seemed like not an in. And I ended up ushering to see the show, which was amazing and super cool. And I ended up meeting Irene afterwards and having a nice conversation. And the next day, can't make this up, my father, who's an opera singer, was at City Opera. Doing the last opera he ever did before he retired, called The Visit. And I sat down with my then girlfriend at the time, and Irene was in front of us. literally the seat in front of us, and
Wow.
spoke to me the entire time of watching The Visit with my father on stage.
That's amazing. So this is Maria Irene Fornes,
Yeah.
an extraordinary, may she rest in peace, a really extraordinary American playwright of Cuban ancestry. She's changed a lot of our perspectives on the theater. A lot of the plays we now know are because the playwrights were mentored by Irene. David, welcome back. You have to come back to Hartford Stage. We're scheming away, but it's nice to see you here. So I think you had mentioned that you were game to share a story, an ushering story.
Yeah, it's actually when I was an usher. My parents had voluntold me to hand out programs at a performance at my sister's school. I think she was either in 7th or 8th grade, and I was a freshman in high school. And I literally had never seen a dramatic event, never been to a play. I had no idea what the hell they were all about. And I was kind of pissed off because it was a Saturday and I'd much rather be outside playing with my friends. But anyway, it was at some Dominican girls' school. Our family was not particularly religious. I don't know why she went there, and I never found out. And it's not all that important anyway. But so I had to hand out the programs to everybody going into this play, and so I did, and the play started, and I figured, well, maybe I'll see what it's all about, what's going on. There seems to be a lot of hoopla going on, so I just stood in the back of the theater, and I figured the play had something to do with a long ago history, because the men were wearing funny clothes. They had these tights on and blousy funny shirts and these pointy feathery hats, and they carried swords, and all the women had big long dresses and funny hats as well, and they had these strange things around their necks, and also some of the nuns who were taught at the school are on stage. So it was this a lot of bells and whistles going on, and they also talked funny. I didn't really know what they were saying because I was strange to my ears. There was some kind of probably Shakespeare or something like that. Anyway, I stood there for a while, and I wasn't paying much attention to what was going on. And I was mostly engrossed in a comic book that I had brought with me to pass the time. It was a Green Hornet comic book, as I think I remember. And because I knew the play was going to be boring, which it was to me at that time, at least. Anyway, at one point, something was happening on stage because everyone stopped talking. And everyone was on stage, and there was this one guy standing in the middle above everybody else with this big red crimson robe on, and he had this white pointy cone head on, and he seemed to be very important. And he was asking this young fellow to please give him the special object. The silence continued, and the young fellow looked kind of nervous, and I noticed he didn't have anything in his hands. And people started looking around each other on the stage, and the audience is going, and I'm standing in the back there, with my comic book, and thinking, oh, well, I guess nothing's happening, big deal. So I went back out into the lobby, sat down, and started reading my comic book. Just as I sat down, the young man who was on stage came tearing ass around and into the lobby, looking around. He sees me. He runs over to me without saying a thing, sees I'm reading something, snatches my comic book out of my hand and disappears. I say, well, what the And so I go back into the theater, and as soon as I get back into the theater, he dashes onto the stage. And he's holding up my comic book going, I have it, I have it.
There you go.
The old important looking man in the red robe says, well, you know, bequeath it to me, hand it over, some kind of thing like that. He hands it over to him, and as he hands it over to him, they look at each other, they look at the object, tense silence, they kind of giggle, then control themselves, and then the important man holds it above his head, staring at it, worshiping it almost, kissing it, holding against his head to his heart, at which point everyone kneels down, music starts, the curtain drops, audience starts to applaud.
Did you get it back?
Well, I'm going, am I the only person in this room that knows that that is a comic book? And it is not the precious object that was so desired that culminated with the climax of the play. And I never got my comic book back.
There you go. The price of ushering. The price of ushering.
It was actually I sort of consider it my introduction to make believe, because everybody else in the audience seemed to believe
they were with it.
Book, and
that's great.
I should have been a whistleblower at the moment.
But did you ever usher again?
What?
Did you ever usher again?
Never ushered again.
Yeah.
See that. Now, Margie, tell us, how many ushers are we, you know, and we'll segue to some of our Hartford stage usher stories, but how many ushers by and large are you overseeing, volunteer ushers for Hartford stage?
We have 276, but who's counting, right now, and they go through 8 different shows. They go through the whole year. They train over the summer. They show up no matter what the weather is. They change their night if they have to, but most of them, by and large, I just trust them. They're great, and they show up all the time, and they're doing it like whatever the line from the show that you read in the beginning, they were doing something with their hearts, and that just jumped out at me, because they're doing it. They have the luxury of focus. They're doing it with their hearts, and
thank you. That is the connection. I mean, it's this, we do it for the love of it. And these ushers have some great stories. I want to bring on Christina Bailey. Is Christina on? It's a phone call. Yes. Hi, Christina.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for being a Hartford stage usher. We're very grateful to you.
You are more than welcome.
Go ahead.
So I have been affiliated with Hartford Stage since its very beginning. It started when I was a junior in high school, and I was dating my boyfriend who worked for the Hartford Seminary bookstore. One day, the president of the seminary came down to the bookstore and gave him 2 tickets to a performance that night. So I was in Hartford at a meeting for junior achievement. So my boyfriend called my mother, got permission to pick me up, which he did, and we went to the Hartford stage, to the very first Hartford stage production. The very first show that they ever had, back when they were located behind Sage and Allen, in a building back there, a smaller venue than what it is now.
It's like 1964 at this point, right? I mean, that's because that was the first performances.
Yes, it was 1964, and I was a junior in high school. So it was their premiere production, and I was dressed in, you have to imagine me, in back then, a Madras dress, you know, penny loafer shoes, and a fisherman raincoat. And everyone else had on tuxedos, suits, gowns, or, you know, cocktail dresses, diamonds, and furs. So I felt underdressed to begin with, but I loved the performance. I had never been to a theater like this before, and I fell in love with theater that night. I literally fell in love with theater. The production was wonderful, and I wish I knew for certain which production it was, but it was very well done, and my love for theater started then.
It hooked you, and and are you still ushering?
Well, it hooked me, and then I went to college and came back as often as I could. But then when I got married, I subscribed with my husband, and we came to all the productions, and I saw the change go from behind the Sage and Allen store into its current location. Right. And subsequently, I have become an usher, and I have been an usher for very many years, and I continue to see good theater, and wherever I go, I'm always looking for theater.
Yay.
Whether it's New York or wherever, I'm always looking for theater, and I've seen some wonderful productions, and I've had some wonderful experiences at Hartford Stage, and I've met some other great people, the volunteers, the other volunteers that I work with.
It's a real community that gets formed among the ushers. Yeah.
It is a community among the ushers. Plus, you really do, depending on where you're located, you sometimes get to chat with the people who are coming into the theater, and you hear their stories too. And sometimes you see people that that come, and the people that I work with, Margie is great, and all of the other, people, staff people that we work with, they're all great. And so it's been a wonderful experience for me, and I feel like I'm a part of Hartford Stage because I was there the very first night it opened, and I'm still with it.
You are, and we're totally grateful. I'm going to invite someone else on to share his usher stories. Some of you might know him. Darko Tresnak, I believe. Yeah, Darko is going to join. So Darko, because you used to volunteer usher at the Kennedy Center, so we'll welcome Darko back to his always home once he gets to Fawn. Actually, I'm going to make Darko listen to an usher story before he speaks. So welcome, Darko. I've missed you.
You too, Amelia.
I'm glad you're here.
Hector says hi.
Oh, and another dog. All right. So not fair. I'm bringing Coco on next time. I asked you all to listen. This is a brief recorded story from an usher who couldn't join us today, Hartford Stage usher. Roll tape, Scott. There we go. I'm getting very, very sophisticated on the Zoom webinar thing.
Yes, I'll just share her name. This is Susan Gilmore, also a longtime usher. And here comes her story. Can you hear it?
Nope, we don't hear it yet.
What's going on? Hold on.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties at Hartford Stage.
Oh no, technical difficulties. You know what? Let's have Darko share his story, and I'll figure it out. Okay. Sorry.
I don't have a story. What do you want to ask me, Amelia?
Oh, well then you'll see, Darko. I'm going to hold you then. Does anyone else have we have another usher story. No, Darko, you'll see why you've been invited. It's all. I have a specific question for you, but I can't ask it yet. There is a dramaturgy to this. There is a plan. It's just very subtle. It's.
I like it. Good.
Linda, are you there? Can we hear Linda's story? Linda McGurn. Margie, am I pronouncing that right?
Linda McGurn.
So
Linda and Bob.
Linda and Robert are going to join us. So they're hopefully.
I'm here.
There you are. We hear you. Can you do video?
Yep. Start my video.
Start your video now. Tilt your computer.
Hold it down, Linda.
Yay!
Oh, there you are. Okay.
There we are.
Okay. So you'd like my story?
Yes.
My husband and I, who is in the kitchen, and because he has profound hearing, he doesn't know I'm here. There he is. My husband and I have been ushering at Hartford Stage for about 30 years. And we started ushering at Hartford Stage when we moved to a new town. We moved to Granby, and we didn't really know anybody. And we knew one person, and they invited us to usher at Hartford Stage. Well, I love theater. I've been going to Broadway since I'm 13 years old. So I said, we're doing this. And he said, all right, we're doing this. But that was 30 years ago. But we went with these acquaintances so we could get, because we couldn't afford, my husband's a clergyman, and we had no money for theater. So we went with this group so we could see the shows and meet some other people. Well, they all went to the Richardson every time we ushered. So we spent millions of dollars at the Richardson, much more than we would have spent to actually buy tickets and see the show. So we've been doing this for 30 years. He had to stop about 2 years ago because his hearing is so difficult, he wasn't getting anything out of it. And I invited my friend Betty, who I think is also on the show, to join me. But the fun story that I want to share is really his story. He, when Carrie Fisher was doing her show, her mother, Debbie Reynolds, came, and Bob was asked by the person in charge to, that's very good, to kind of take care of Debbie Fisher so that nobody, Debbie Reynolds, I'm sorry, so that nobody would come and ask her for her autograph. And he had to usher her backstage at intermission so that nobody would attack her as such. So the two of us were sitting with Debbie Reynolds, and there was a terrible problem with the technology, and the cordless mic was not working. And so the audience was getting very antsy and going, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. And Debbie Reynolds was furious, just furious. And she was sitting there, and she was going, fix that mic, and she was really angry. And then Carrie Fisher said, Mom, come on down and help me out here. And Debbie Reynolds walked from about the 6th row down onto the stage, going from to hello. I had never, ever seen anybody change personality as quickly as Debbie Reynolds did.
That's awesome. It's the best story. Thank you so much for that.
And I have to just say also before I go or stop, Margie, we've been doing this for 30 years, and there's no question Margie is the best manager we've ever had in 30 years. And we've had dozens of them.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Thanks to Robert as well. Scott, you can,
yes,
Scott's gonna,
technical difficulties are fixed. There's all the microphones work here now.
So now we can.
Let's hear a story, from Usher Susan Gilmore. Here it comes.
Right.
So I have always loved the play Twelfth Night. I guess that's my favorite Shakespeare play. And in 2012, when Hartford Stage announced that they were going to be producing the play the following year, I was rather wistful because I was just coming through surgery and treatment for breast cancer. And I thought to myself, I wonder, gee, I hope I'll be there next year to see that. And I was. So in 2013, I think it was almost June, I got to see the show, and it was just this magical performance with just so many nuances and that fabulous green maze set and everything else. And Darko was in the theater after people cleared out. He was there to see the show. So I went up to him and I told him how much I enjoyed the show and how much it meant to me personally just to make it, to see that production. And he was so sweet, and he said something that unfortunately I can't remember, verbatim, he said somebody, I think a director, a famous director, theater person, writer, somebody, always said that there's always someone in the audience for a particular performance, and that show is for, that maybe it means the most to in some way. And I hope somehow I'll find out exactly who that was, who said that and what they said. But in any case, he was very sweet, and it really meant a lot to me that he told me that. He said, tonight that person was you. And I was very touched by that. So I think, ushers get so much out of the Hartford stage, but we're also audience members for those shows too. So I'm very grateful for all these years with Hartford Stage.
Right. So Darko, that's why you're here, right? We wanted you to hear that story of thanks, and also find out what was the quote.
I remember that conversation with Susan, and I remember giving her a hug. And when you finish being an artistic director, that's what matters, memories like that. And it's a quote from Martha Graham. She said that there's, and I'm going to misquote it, but she said that there is that one dream audience member, that you perform for them. Somebody who hopefully understands everything you're trying to do.
Yay.
So that night it was Susan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Good to see you here. We have one more. Paula Fialkov is one more usher, and I'm eating up our time again. I just an embarrassment of riches with all of you, as I promised to keep this. We're going to go over just a couple of minutes, but I don't want to miss out on the story.
I don't see Paula on.
Okay.
Amelia.
All right. So we have just one more volunteer story of a slightly different nature. Dakota, are you on? Of what happens when you volunteer at a theater. So Dakota Shepherd, this is a story about Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater. So I know we have some folks who are familiar with Watt. So we'll hear Dakota's story. And Scott, if there are questions that can be thrown out or other stories that can be injected through here too. There's Dakota. Yay. Hi. So
hi.
Dakota, as age goes, you win the youngest volunteer prize, right?
I don't think that's true, but
no, I mean you were 11 when you did this. I'm not. There are no ages now. No.
Amen.
I'm just saying you were 11 when you were brought in to volunteer. I believe doing sound.
Yeah.
So over to you.
It was the first production of What's first season. They did Rhinoceros. My mother was one of the founding members. We lived in an apartment upstairs, and everybody was working hard, pitching in, all volunteer, getting the stuff ready. And when it came time for the actual show, they realized they had all the actors, but not a lot of tech. And so at 11, I got put on sound, which meant pretty much just putting in a cassette tape and pressing play and pausing at the right times. But I got really drawn into the action and screwed up my cue so that when it was time to start the church bells at the top of an act for this actor standing out there alone as the lights came up, instead I cued the sound of the stampeding rhinoceroses.
So there you go. Just all the different impacts, the different ways we have of impacting performers. And Darko, you volunteered, ushered at the Kennedy Center, yeah?
Yes,
when you were younger.
Yes. Do you want a story from that?
Do you have a good story that's short? Because I'm over time, and I can be rude to.
It's excellent. Good. It's a very short story. I just finished ushering. The audience was seated. I went to take the elevator, huge staff elevators at Kennedy Center. And I'm like whistling, spacing out, and I hear the ding, the door opens, and it's the Grand Kabuki of Japan. The entire company.
In the elevator.
This white elevator. and there was more pageantry and drama in that elevator than I had ever seen. And I was terrified. I nearly peed my pants. And so I was like, okay, so I walk into the elevator, and the actor in front, who could tell that I was so excited and nervous, he put a hand on my shoulder and smiled at me. And that was the best memory from Kennedy Center days.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much to all of you. We just don't have enough time with all of you. We have a tradition here at Seen and Heard after all these weeks, which just like we have no age, we're not counting the weeks of the pandemic right now. We're just in denial. We're going to read a poem communally. We're going to invite in a few other volunteers, different kinds of volunteers to join us. David Klein, who is a longtime board member and past board president. And Preeti, you're there. Preeti is started out as an usher and now works front of house. So Janice is with David. Hello. Nice to see you guys. And Elizabeth Davis, who curates our library, works for the Hartford Public Library, our wonderful partner. And Elizabeth curates the lobby library. So we're welcome, Elizabeth. Nice to see you. And the poem we're going to read is by a poet I did not know. I actually tried to track him down to see if he would join us, because it's like, why not? It's called The Dignity of Ushers, and his name is Al McGeans, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. He teaches at Wake Tech, I believe. So if he's out there somewhere, someone knows him. This is an extraordinary poem. I want to clarify, it's a celebration of ushers, of the lost profession of ushering in movie theaters. So again, it's of a certain period, kind of in the Moss Hart vein, if you will. So we're opening and ending with a sense of another time in our culture. So without further ado, Margie, will you get us started with The Dignity of Ushers?
Their authority did not unfold from ironed white shirts and thin ties,
or from the funereal seriousness that struck their acne-splashed faces, but because they stood heir to our native faith in light.
So we followed the thin white waver of beams. They pointed down aisles to seats we never thought of refusing.
It was the first job I wanted, especially after birthday outings far from home showed me the glowing outfits worn by big city ushers.
Did we lose David? All right.
Their get-ups, a blend of doorman and military dictator, as gaudy and fine as the plots of movies my Saturdays were swallowed by.
None of us knew as they took us into the artificial light of the cinema.
But they walked the path of the pin setter, the blacksmith or elevator operator, professions reduced to curiosity by wandering time.
Only in the quick steps of floor salesmen, the slim backs of hostesses, bringing us to our tables.
Do they remain? The artful flutters of their flashlight lost, in the dark we are left to find our way through.
Thank you. And thank you, Jennifer, for jumping right in.
I hope I didn't cut David off.
It's really been a joy to have all of you. I'm sorry we don't have more time. Some of you, I'm gonna, as many of you as will come back, we would love to have you back. This does seem to be continuing. A real shout out to our ushers, and now we'll bring on more folks. This is the moment where I asked all of you to prepare a drink, right? Whatever your drink of, we're drinking. Not till now, of course. None of us drink before 6. We know that. Even in a pandemic, nothing going on. So I think, you can see all of these familiar faces. I just want to thank all the volunteers that make Hartford Stage run. Our ushers, our board, our Stage 1 board, our neighborhood ambassadors, our education ambassadors, all the folks that through their love of this art form and for their dedication to this theater has led Hartford Stage to be the institution that it is. And to thank these wonderful actors who've joined us with their stories as well. A toast to all of you, to Hartford Stage, and may we all find ways of volunteering for things we love in the coming, through this difficult period as well. So cheers to all. And I need to remind you to make a contribution if you can. That's not why we're here, but we are hurting like everybody else. So volunteer time, contribute funds to us or to other arts organizations who are hurting now. So we're gonna get through this time. Next week, same bat channel. We'll be back. Stay tuned for Saturday's email when we'll tell you what we have in store for next Wednesday. Thank you, everybody, and to Hartford Stage.
Thank you. Hear, hear. Chin, chin.
Thank you. Chin, chin. I'll stay on to wave, but you can all leave. I pretend I'm alone in an empty theater at the end. It's my little moment.
Thank you, Melia.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, David, Gordon. We got to get, the stories of how the three of you carried on.
We got a few stories, yeah.
I think just the three of you would be
They're
quite.
much older than I am.
There's no age. There's no age. It's amazing.
Thank you, Amelia.
Oh, Jen, such a treat. Shona, David, and Michaela, we have all wilderness in us still. We got to do that.
It'll happen.
It's got to happen.
It'll happen.
Hello, all volunteers. Thank you so, so much. Thank you. Thank you for all you've done for us. I'm watching all your names flash. This is the highlight for me, as I've said. So thank you. I think we have to end this now, but much love and thanks.